Immigration. The term itself isn't a problem. Immigrants bring new ideas and innovation, stabilize our shrinking labor market, and build positive diplomatic ties with the rest of the world. The problem comes when immigrants seem to be the cause of overcrowded emergency rooms, overtaxed welfare systems, and underpaid workers. The problem lies in a divided society, where being an American is based on cultural practices, not on shared national identities and beliefs. The problem comes when immigrants are welcome in theory, but not if they carry any of their cultural identity with them. Yet this fear is nothing new. It can be seen throughout the history of immigration. The history of immigration can be divided into 5 different periods. The first and longest era stretched from the 17th century through the early 19th century. Immigrants came from a range of places, including the British Isles, France, modern Germany, the Netherlands, and Poland. When they came, they were separate, working the land and the factories, yet slowly integrating into American society. They were obviously needed and came in small enough numbers that they didn't elicit a strong negative reaction. From the 1820s to the 1880s was the era of mass migration. 15 million people came to the U.S. These immigrants settled in the Midwest and spurred on industrial development in the Northeast. The Midwest became home to tight-knit, relatively homogeneous communities of immigrants. This era also inspired the first outbreaks of nativism against the most different groups of immigrants. The immigration of the Irish spawned a powerful nativist movement, fueled by an antipathy to immigrants in general, a fear of Catholicism, and a national aversion to the Irish. Especially in the decades just before the U.S. Civil War, this nativism spawned a powerful political movement and even a political party, the Know-Nothings, who made anti-immigration and anti-Catholicism central to its political agenda. This period also witnessed the arrival of small numbers of Chinese immigrants to the American West. Native-born Americans reacted intensely and negatively to their arrival, leading to the passage of one of the only piece of U.S. immigration legislation that specifically named a group as the focus of a restrictive policy, the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. At the end of the 19th and early 20th century, the creation of steamboats created a huge influx of immigration. This era saw immigration from southern and eastern Europe to largely urban destinations, creating America's industrial labor pool and allowing the U.S. to become one of the world's industrial giants. Yet this increasing immigration caused another wave of xenophobia. Much like today in the 1890s, many well-off white Americans believed immigration posed a serious threat to the nation's health and security. In 1893, a group formed the Immigration Restriction League, and it and other similar organizations pressed Congress for severe curtailment of immigration. The government created the Dillingham Commission to investigate the effects of immigration on America, and they became convinced that immigration from southern and eastern Europe could destroy America's cultural identity and economic prosperity. This inspired the next big shift in immigration. In 1921, after World War I, Congress passed the National Origins Act that not only restricted how many immigrants could come to the U.S., but also created a quota system based on national origins. This complicated piece of legislation gave preference to immigrants from Northern and Western Europe, severely limited the numbers from Eastern and Southern Europe, and completely blocked all immigration from Asia. Yet the legislation excluded the Western Hemisphere from the quota system, so the 1920s ushered in a huge wave of immigration from Mexico, the Caribbean, and other parts of Central and South America. During this era, the U.S. began to admit a small number of refugees on a case-by-case basis. This system lasted until 1965, when the Hart-Celler Act did away with the racially based quota system. The law replaced quotas with preference categories based on family relationships and job skills, giving particular preference to potential immigrants with relatives in the United States, and with occupations deemed critical by the U.S. Department of Labor. Though the legislation was actually meant to stimulate immigration from Europe, immigrants began to come from places like Korea, China, India, the Philippines, and Pakistan, as well as countries in Africa. By 2000, immigration to the United States had returned to its 1900 volume, and the U.S. once again became a nation formed and transformed by immigrants. With this increased immigration has come increased fear, much like that which instigated the Know-Nothings, the Chinese Exclusion Act, or the Dillingham Commission. Once again, Americans fear that immigration will fundamentally change the identity of our country. Yet a nation cannot be sustained by accident of birth. Rather, the unique imprint that each new generation makes, and the civic involvement and investment that this requires are the foundation of national growth and prosperity. The current immigration debate is nothing new, yet this does not absolve the accidental or purpose discrimination that exists today. It is easy to envision ourselves in just another wave of immigration, yet each wave is made up of individuals who contribute another aspect to the public and enrich what it means to be an American citizen. It would be naive to expect that immigrants wouldn't experience any hardships. Yet when these hardships become chronic and transgenerational, this does become an issue. The poverty rate among immigrants is 50% higher than the national average. Even among second-generation Mexican Americans, only 50% from the ages of 16 to 20 are in school, as opposed to the national average of 74%. These problems are cyclical, because the majority of immigrants, especially from the developing world, do not have access to good education. They have trouble finding good jobs to move to better areas and create a better life for their family. These economic, educational, and societal disparities lead to economic dependence, rising crime rates, and growing antipathy on both sides to the new, the different, the other. This divide cannot be bridged through strictly structural changes. The border can be closed, amnesty can be given, quotas can be reformed, yet this societal divide will remain. True reform of this nature will not occur through trickle-down legislation, but rather interpersonal integration. Through sharing the story of America, its ideals and norms, its immigrants who create its citizens. Individual citizens must take the responsibility for this change. Each side must realize that there is value in retaining each other's cultures, and that in them there is nothing to fear. The government can assist in this through encouraging more integrated schools and classrooms, increasing access to quality education for elementary to post-secondary students, educating about America's immigrant history, and developing an immigration process that treats immigrants like the vital part of America that they are. If the public can be united enough to create this multifaceted debate, then perhaps we can find concrete solutions to the problems caused when a country is divided between us and the other.